Thank you, Minister, for your opening address today. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to someone who probably needs no introduction, Professor Peter Coaldrake, AO, Chief Commissioner of TEQSA, who will provide us with an overview of the state of the sector. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks very much, Claire, and in particular for being our MC today. I'd also like to welcome everyone and good morning. And I hope we have a very productive day today. And on behalf of fellow commissioners and the CEO and indeed the TEQSA team, welcome you all to the day. We've got about 950 delegates, which is fantastic. And particularly rewarding is the fact that about 100 of our delegates today are students. And as you know, the TEQSA conferences has always placed an emphasis on the interest and focus of students, and it's great to see that today. Perhaps befitting of the times, it's also good to welcome representatives from six countries who are here as delegates. Some of them are from agencies similar to TEQSA. And thanks Nick Saunders, my predecessor, and Lynn Martin, the previous commissioner, for being here. I'd like to acknowledge also the remarks of Alan Tudge. Thank him very much for joining us today and his interest in the conference. The theme of his remarks is pretty obvious, and that is the focus on the reopening of the country and of the sector indeed, post-COVID, now that we're hopefully well and truly into the COVID recovery stage, though we understand and accept that's going to be quite elongated. But his remarks, particularly around the international student initiatives, were welcome, and we appreciate his remarks as well on research and commercialisation. Before I make my substantive comments, just to also say, rather than leave till the end of the day, I'd just like to thank the organising team who put this together. It's no small task to put together a virtual conference of this size, and I do thank Joan Cooper, fellow commissioner, Justin Baranuskas, Brian Olchin, Karen Trelaw, and TEQSA's engagement team on doing a fantastic job, and I'm sure in your virtual way you'll be applauding their efforts. I've got about 13 minutes left in my presentation. The themes for today, as you know, the sub-themes, hard lessons, valuable learnings, and heightened expectations. I'm going to try and make some remarks in respect of the first two of those, and I think the heightened expectations segment might be dealt with quite adequately during the course of the day and during the discussions of panels. But I would like to, in the last couple of minutes, make some remarks about TEQSA's future regulatory approach. So they're the three components of my remarks. The slides I'm about to present have quite a lot of words on them against a series of dot points. And so we're going to make those slides available as soon as the presentation is over, so you needn't worry too much about writing things down because they're going to be on the TEQSA website. The first of those relates to the hard lessons that we as a sector have learnt. And some of those are very well known and have major erring on almost a daily basis and have been there from the outset. Those are actually further down on the page. They relate to the decline in international student income and all that means, and the obvious pressures on the bottom line and the pressures on operating models, which we have become very accustomed to. But I would like to just talk about some other hard lessons. They're equally obvious, but less spoken of. I guess the first is simply that prior to COVID, we talked and romanticised about the days when students went to lectures and attended lecture theatres in large numbers. But of course, the problem for the last 2 years hasn't been students in lecture theatres, it's been students not even on campuses because they've not been able to, and the incredible impact that's had both on those students and their learning, their interactions with other students, the interactions that they have with staff, of course on the impacts on the staff themselves, both professional and academic staff working together. So the campus empty issue has been a really hard lesson. Going with that, and not surprisingly, is the diminished student satisfaction engagement. We saw that in the CLIP results at the beginning of this year. We'll see them assuredly in the quilt results early next year. But they do provide collectively a big challenge for us as we come out and as we define for ourselves and as a sector new normals. The fact is we will be having many more experiments and ways of experiments in the way we deliver courses. And of course, we should be very attentive, all of us as providers, as we call ourselves, we should be very attentive to the impacts, both on the quality of student learning and student progress as well. One of the other hard lessons I think is now reasonably accepted is that Australia has been hurt by its very strong reliance on on-campus, onshore international education. It has been a fantastically successful period for Australia, and the contribution that international education has made on the economy, to society, to community, to students should never be underestimated. But I think we've got to a pivot point where we understand that going forward, we are going to have to diversify and look fairly fundamentally at our approach, and institutions will make different choices, and that's also a very important thing to do. But the reliance on single source country in particular has hurt us. Less reported on mostly is simply the loss of jobs in our institutions. Largely, they haven't been in the senior academic area, though some would argue. They've been amongst our professional staff and the junior occasional academic staff. Now, the junior casual academic staff, those two groups, as it were, they have always done in our institutions a huge amount of the teaching. And there are consequences for them, of course, when jobs are lost. There are also consequences for institution. And with regard to the professional staff, this comes up in the learnings part as well. The loss of professional jobs has had some quite stark implications for the running of institutions. And not surprisingly, with all of those things, there has been generated a lot of stress around, there has been a lot of stress and angst for the staff affected by sudden change, particularly if sudden change is not only unfamiliar, but poorly communicated. And the last point here is simply just to recognise how difficult it has been for new and less established players to secure a footing in such difficult circumstances. I'm talking here about many of the institutes which are not universities or not university colleges, but who are seeking to find a home, as it were, in the sector and to establish themselves for the benefit of students. The second slide relates to, there are 2 pages in this. There are 2 pages to describe some of the learnings that we've, I think, benefited from. The first is actually a very good news story, and that is that we have seen ourselves as a very cautious and conservative sector, an inherently cautious sector. But it's been fantastic that so many institutions and organisations have shown such a willingness and a capacity to respond so nimbly to these profoundly difficult, profoundly confounding circumstances. Of course, it's not over, and there's no snapback. We're looking at the emergence of new paradigms and new normals, and so the process of change is going to be relentless, and its pace is not going to slacken. But I do think we should momentarily say, well, the sector has done a fantastic job. Governments responded, the providers have responded, all the providers have responded, students have responded, staff have responded, and does, in a sense, it's quite reassuring to know just how well we've been able to do so. We accept, I think, that COVID has been both a disruptor of current practice and paradigms and an accelerator of change which was coming. That's, I think, been a good learning, perhaps a reassuring one as well. We also, I think, have a familiarity that we are dealing now with an increasingly diverse domestic student population, not just international student populations, but an increasingly diverse domestic student population. And I wouldn't be surprised if George Megalogenis says something about some of those domestic issues in his remarks today. The last on that page is we're, of course, focusing now on new models. And I think as part of doing so, we also should just understand the challenges that have been faced by our current students, and those challenges aren't listening. And it goes to the point about student dissatisfaction, because the students may not have been able to engage in the way they traditionally have been, and some of them are feeling, lots of them are feeling significantly disenfranchised. So the re-engagement of them is very important. The second of the slides regarding valuable learnings is a point that is certainly not talked about much. There are profound implications for what is going on for campus planning, for, if you like, the state of the estate. And this is because our traditional notions of time and place and space are being entirely upended. And those who work in facilities, as well as those who operate our academic and teaching and research facilities, will be aware of these things. A major issue for all institutions and organisations, and certainly for us as a regulator, are the challenges to integrity that have emerged. And when people talk about integrity issues and they talk about TEQSA in the same breath, there are images of TEQSA with flying squads. Nothing of that's particularly relevant. What's here is that the regulator and government and providers have to work together in dealing with some of these really big issues and challenges. Industrial scale cheating being amongst those, targeting not only students, but also vulnerable staff as well. And of course, as we have a more diversified student population and more diverse international approaches, there is going to be a lot of focus on third-party arrangements and the use of agents. The last point I want to make on that slide relates to the loss of staff. I've already commented upon this once, but and that will obviously have great significant implications for those people. But the very last dot point on that page is relevant. That significant corporate knowledge has exited many institutions. And a lot of those job losses have been in what I call engine room functions. And I think it's going to be, and I'm sure some of us already know, it's going to be very hard and costly to replace that talent. And the indications from the broader economy certainly confirm that. In terms of TEQSA's regulatory approach, we're an organisation now 10 years old. We are guided in our regulatory approach by two roles, and those are our responsibility to uphold the quality and integrity of the system, and secondly, to protect the interests of students. It goes without saying that we're looking at the relevance and appropriateness of that role going forward. Our approach to date has been very provider-based and will continue to be significantly so. But obviously the risk settings are being confounded. And I think we recognise that so many of the challenges that we have are sector-wide and not simply agency or institution or university-based. Students see themselves as consumers, as more than consumers, and as they see themselves as partners in learning, and this is a focus for today, and the quest for the authentic student voice is an important issue, and indeed one we're dealing with in one of our sessions this morning. The regulator obviously has a responsibility to look back, but we actually have a view that we should, as far as possible, be prescient and look forward as well. As we work through some potential changes, I give you on behalf of our colleague commissioners and the CEO and the team just an assurance that we'll be seeking to work through those issues from early on with all providers. It remains for me now to I'm sorry for those remarks being quite brief, but I hope that the backup slides are helpful in teasing them out. It remains for me now to introduce George Megalogenis, who's our keynote speaker, I should say, who's going to address the slightly broad topic of State of Australia. I think all of you know, George is known to this organisation. George is a very big thinker. As I've said there, I think correctly, known as an author, a journalist, economic and political commentator. Most recently wrote a great essay in the Quarterly, Exit Strategy, Politics After the Pandemic. He's a Walkley Award winner and the Prime Minister's non-fiction book winner for his book, The Australian Moment. But for some of you, particularly those who have an affinity with Australian rules football, or Australian football as they call it, he's the author of Football Solution. I would just say that when he appeared on Q&A a fortnight ago, there was on the strap line going below the speaking, at one stage someone said, he's not bad for a Richmond supporter. So that's a very, very high compliment, George. So on that basis, I'd like to warmly welcome George Megalogenis. Thank you, George.